Today I'm going to discuss how to learn Pascal. You can do this in your Windows or Ubuntu machine. I am now in my Windows machine using the WSL or Windows subsystem for Linux. All you have to do is to sudo apt update and then follow it up with sudo apt install fpc. After doing that, you should be able to have a Pascal compiler version of the newer versions right now. And once we have this FPC or the Pascal compiler, we can now start creating a Pascal program and learn how to do Pascal programming. So first, we have to create in an editor source code for the Pascal program. The smallest, will create the smallest program like program.pras. So the extension should be PAS for a Pascal source code, then program, then program, prog1, and then begin, end, followed by a period. So this would be the smallest Pascal executable that you can create. Okay, now we exit the editor and let us compile now the source code. If PC, there, and the compilation is successful, we now have an executable. We will run the program now, and it runs but nothing is printed, so let us add a print command to explore further. Now, the first thing that you need to understand in Pascal is that it is case insensitive, which means that you can capitalize right the W or the L and it will work. So it is not case sensitive. So let us exit from it, back compile it again. And then it is successful. Let us run again the program and it printed the message. So you can, like I said, you can capitalize everything as Pascal is case insensitive. Still works. Okay, so since we're going to repeatedly edit the source file and test if it works, I have a script here called the watcher. It just constantly watches the file if it is modified, and if the file is modified, it will compile the file, and then if the compilation is successful, then it will run the executable. So this is just my tool for rapidly exploring Pascal, as today it is still my 3 days of learning Pascal. So I'll just type watcher program.pas, and the watcher script will be constantly watching the source file. If the source file is modified, like right there, hello world 2, save, and then it is automatically compiled and then executed. So this would be the compilation message, and below this divider would be the output when executing the program. So all is well and good. All you have to do now is just modify the source code, and it will we can immediately see on the tab below the output. For example, we can actually remove the semicolon as this is the last part of the statement and it is not required in Pascal, and save it and it would still work. However, if we remove the closing parenthesis, this is now a syntax error and save the source code. And as you can see, fatal syntax error, closing parenthesis expected, but in found, it is found in line 5, column 1. So that would be, yep, so let us correct it. And let us just put a semicolon to be explicit. So we now see the smallest Pascal program using the FPC compiler in Windows. You can install the FPC compiler in the Windows DOS, and there's a Windows executable. However, I choose to install the FPC Free Pascal compiler in the Windows subsystem for Linux, as I'm also exploring Free Pascal in my other Linux machine. So I'm just familiar navigating the bash shell more than navigating it in the DOS command prompt, but you can use the DOS command prompt to also do that. There's also an IDE for pre-Pascal called the Lazarus IDE, just like a full-fledged IDE that looks like the Borland IDE or Visual Studio IDE or the Delphi IDE. But since I'm still learning Pascal, it is preferable to really start from the command line so that there will be no confusion. The next phase of the program would be to create a, a function that adds two numbers, like function odd num, and then the first number would be a of type integer. Now, this is a common source of bug that I found myself into. I use comma like that because comma is the parameters in most programming languages such as Java, C Sharp, Python, C++, Rust, Golang separates the function parameters with a comma. However, in Pascal, it's actually semicolon like that. So be careful of that one as I often find myself in that error. And now the body of the function should be again with a begin and end, and this time as a semicolon. Take note that the at the main entry point of the program it's at period because this is the end. However, the begin end of functions should be semicolon because this is not yet the end of the main program. And then the return type of a function is there's no such thing as return like that. What Pascal does is you assign the return value to the name of the function, and the name of the function is oddnum. Therefore, you assign that to the sum of a and b. Thereby, you are creating now the oddnum function, and let us now call that function by modifying the right line here and calling it in place like sum equals then oddnum then 3 4. Okay, so instead of using a temporary variable to store the result of addNum, we are instead calling the rightLine function, and inside the parameter of rightLine is also a call to another function which is addNum. This will work because addNum returns has a return type, and I forgot to put the return type here, which is also an integer. And in fact, we can capitalize integer here As I said, Pascal is not case sensitive like that. All of them are the same. This is also true for variables, like you can even capitalize B here and it would still point to the same variable. Take note of that. Now let us run the program. By saving it, our watcher script in the below tab will detect the changes in prog1 that pass, automatic compile and run it. So I will save now the source code and we have the error, illegal expression in line 5. Okay, and this is also one of the main source of error that I find myself into. Assignment should have a colon equals, and the reason is in other languages like C, C++, Java, Python, this colon here is not here, but in Pascal you should put a colon when doing an assignment, and there the sum is 7. Now, a very important distinction here is we have a function, but then there's also another twin twin brother of the function, which is what we call as the procedure. And for example, say hello and s string. Now, the difference between a procedure and a function is that a procedure does not have a return value. So it will just execute stuff, but it cannot return anything. So for example, the body of say hello would be right line, then hello, then we concatenate the s, and then instead of calling this, we'll just comment this for the meantime, and call say hello, John. And one thing to notice also is strings in Pascal are delimited by single quote, not double quote, okay? In other languages like Java, C++, C Sharp, strings are delimited by double quote, but in Pascal it's only single quote. So we call the say hello procedure passing the string John, and it should, let us save this, and we got the message hello John. Now, because our procedure does not return anything, you could not do it, you could not pass say hello into another function, just like what we did in add now. For example, if we say like this, and observe carefully that say hello does not return anything, not even void. It just doesn't return anything, therefore it does not make sense to the compiler how to make sense of this, because WriteLine expects something that is returned from say hello, and if we try to save this and we get a compilation error. So that is one thing to note of. So there is a big difference between a, a procedure and a function in Pascal. Um, Global variables is also possible in Pascal, like that it is very structured. You have to put it here, basically var, and then say var1 integer, then like var2 string, var3 var3 byte, and notice carefully that there is an emitted message warning that the local variables var1, var2, var3 are not used, but nevertheless the program compiled successfully. So this is it for my initial introduction to learning Pascal. As you know, Pascal is a very educational language by virtue of the way that it is structured in such a way that I find it very conducive for teaching proper organization of computer programs. But one weakness of Pascal that has caused its decline in recent years is because at that time, Pascal does not have a very strong representation of the lower level constructs of the CPU, unlike the C programming, which is very closely the expression of C language is almost an assembly language. Pascal is a little bit detached around a few years back because, like I said, it was intended for program organization and pedagogy in teaching. However, the additions and the evolution of the newer Pascal that we have now has improved, and that gap is, I think, is no longer there. Pascal can represent lower level constructs just like C does, in fact, even better, because Pascal has prioritized first the structure of programming, and can say it just gave priority lately to the machine language representation of its syntax. In fact, Pascal now has been cross-compiled to many different platforms like ARM, PowerPC, Intel x86, and so on. So, so there's a revival of Pascal. I think it's a very nice language, and by profession, I am a C++ developer. I am learning Rust as well and Golang. However, learning Pascal and taking some time to understand how Pascal works and its syntax could really improve your understanding of programming as a whole. So that's all for now. And in my next demo, I will be expanding more on the next chapter as I learn something in my adventures with Pascal. I will explain them here, but so far this introduction is should give you an idea of how quickly you can start Pascal right now and follow the instructions we find on the web and begin understanding it. Thank you.